Okay, we're recording again, so just be aware of that. Okay, some new stuff to talk about. All right, I'm up for the first one. So the Cinder client. So we have a lot of, right, because of the way what our API accomplishes can take a long time to build volumes and stuff, right? We return accepted for a lot of requests. Because at the REST API layer, we don't know what's going to happen later or not. So we just say, yeah, we'll try. And then eventually something happens. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So some issues have come up that whenever we return a 202, maybe we should add a poll option similar to what we've got for volume creation, so that the client at least will continue to poll the API and can eventually let the user know what's happened. So that's a possibility. And I mean, we could get, more elaborate if we wanted to, right? If it goes to an error state, we could check for a user message or something. It depends on how elaborate we want to do this in the client, if we're even interested in doing it at all. So the minimal thing would be possibly on the API side, check to see make sure that 202 always returns some type of useful information as opposed to just accepted. Then on the client side, if we wanted to, we could add the poll option to more calls where it would make sense. And then that would give the user an option to have the client, spin until something happened. And it looks like this is a trend. So Octavia client added wait to a bunch of their operations because, as you can imagine, setting up load balancers can take quite a long time. And when you get the request at the API layer, you have no idea what's about to happen or how long it could take. So that's an idea in search of somebody who is interested in following up on it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the idea when we first added poll to volume create was that we would go do that for many other Cinder commands as well. We just haven't done it yet.
So I might kind of throw a wrench into this discussion. And we can defer the topic to some other point in time. But in the TC yesterday, one of the things we're discussing is the fact that nobody's ever moving towards parity between their clients and the OpenStack DLI.
Does the OpenStack client do microversions for Cinder yet?
That's a good question. If not, that would be.
I believe the answer is no. That's been a huge problem.
Okay.
Are you sure about that?
That's why everybody's been ignoring it.
I'm pretty sure they have microversion support.
I would think at this point they have to.
Yeah.
And it was like
they didn't, and in fact there were patches that people had submitted to add support for it, and they got nacked because they're constantly trying to move on to the next best thing. So somebody had pointed out how Nova's handling it, but the latest was, yeah, but we don't want to be doing that in the OpenStack client because the new cool tool we want everybody to use is the Open SDK. So everything seemed to be that we would keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and I think until there's working infrastructure for OpenStack client to somehow use Cinder microversions, it's kind of hard for anybody on our side to really get running with anything there.
Okay. I think the intent, just to make people aware, is to start a pop-up team to look at how and get the OpenStack CLI people involved so that, we have a place to go and say, hey, this is a problem we've seen or we think exists. What's the plan to address it? How can we move forward with that? And not setting it as a goal to deprecate the CLIs, the project CLIs yet, but in the hope of eventually getting there. For the reason that, just for documentation from the deployer's standpoint and usability, having to switch between different CLI interfaces is not good for the users.
Yeah, so are you seeing this as likely to be a community goal at some point? It seems like too big.
It would be, that was part of what we're trying to figure out. But we're going to start a pop-up team to start addressing it and encouraging people to move that direction with eventually setting a, no new code going into project CLIs would be the first step. So new development would need to go into OpenStack SDK or the OpenStack CLI. And then finally saying, okay, we need to migrate everything that's left from the project to the OpenStack CLI.
So the problem with that approach is, right, we need to continue client development because we don't have parity with the OpenStack client. So we really can't stop putting new code into our client until, right, they've caught up to us. So it's a chicken. I know it's a really hard problem, right? But we really can't, delay, right? We get new stuff in the API in this cycle. We can't wait 3 or 4 cycles to actually get it into a client, right? Or we'll be in the situation where, right, you can get up to Victoria in the Cinder client, and you can get up to, I don't know, like micro version, 3.30 in the OpenStack client, and then you can also get micro version, and then there's this big gap, and then you can get the new stuff. So that's the issue I see is that, what operators say is they just want one tool that does everything, but what they really want is they want to do the latest stuff. So it's like, I can give you a tool that does everything. If you define everything to just be, I don't know, Stein maybe, right? But they don't want to do up to Stein. They want to be able to do everything we've delivered up to now.
Right.
So it's like so I just don't know. It's like, I hate to be a complainer. I don't hate to be a complainer. I am a complainer.
No, you don't.
What I'm complaining about is like, if there's a clear, like, structure defined that we can put stuff into, then that would be a big help. But it's like, I don't know. Anyway, that's the major issue, is that I see it as they're sort of doing it backwards. It's like they want to say, all right, from now on, you got to put stuff into and I can see that point, but I think the real thing is that the clients are used a lot to interact with the APIs. And that's what we really need to make sure, that everything we expose in the API can be done in the Cinder client or in a client,
Right.
Anyway, so you can just bring that back as a.
Yeah, people have been showing up for years with the concept of stop adding stuff to Cinder client and do it in OpenStack client instead, and it's just backwards. Like, that's like the last step of the whole transition process, and people keep trying to kind of early.
There is one simple solution. How can we fix it? But I am talking about this each time when we are discussing OpenStack client, but OpenStack client team doesn't want to do it. We just need to make our client as mandatory OpenStack Lite plugin, and that will fix all the issues with feature parity.
I think that is a good idea because it would also let
Yes,
us.
but OpenStack client team doesn't want to do it. They want to get Cinder functionality in the tree of OpenStack client code. I don't know why they did not want to do it as a mandatory plugin, but it will be easier for everybody.
I suspect it's a control thing.
It's a control thing. It's also a people wanted to design a new UI thing, and
yeah, be consistent across all projects.
Yeah, but so they designed, they renamed a bunch of Cinder operations in OpenStack Client in somewhat terrible ways. OpenStack Client volume create, OpenStack Client volume create is not even implemented correctly because it makes you name, which I have been stating for years. Like, it's a cloud. You're supposed to have cattle, not pets. The number one operation in Cinder, volume create, it makes you name volumes, which is nonsensical. And so I don't know what to do with OpenStack client stuff when, they're off doing one thing and we're trying to do something else. And I don't know, it's not real clear, like, how we bring the two different world views together.
And I did share that statement that, okay, so OpenStack client was implemented by people, the Cinder part was implemented by people who don't fully understand Cinder, and it wasn't done correctly, and that's been left kind of a bad taste in our mouths. And they're like, well, okay, then help us fix it.
Well,
we can help willing to, if they ever, if we ever get microversions,
to take the fixes. Yeah, I may just want to point out, this is sort of the convergence of two issues. My own experience was, two things. One, what Eric just pointed out, that a lot of the command structure is just fundamentally different from Cinder. And then the second one was they seem to be very reluctant to merge any patches. So it just became a rather high barrier to contribute.
Right.
I had patches sitting there for months at a time, and I was pinging people, and they just ignore you.
Yeah, one of the comments there was to make cores from the different projects also core in OpenStack CLI to help resolve that. And I think that might be something that we have to do in order to make this happen. I mean, would people be open to that if we were able to have a little more control over actually getting our patches merged there?
I can't imagine a lot of volunteers leaping up to participate, but I think fundamentally, yes. What would actually be really nice is if we had a Cinder participant that could help vet other people contributing to the OpenStack volume command set. So we can make sure that whatever gets added is added in a sane fashion.
Yeah, I think it's like, if we can go to this, like the plugin structure where we're only doing things once in one place, that would make it very exciting. But it's, I mean, we saw the the contributor numbers for what was the cycle we just finished? Ussuri, right? We're way down. So in terms of bandwidth for people to do stuff, it's like we need to have a working client for people to use. And so re-architecting what we've got, even though I agree with it in principle and think it's the wave of the future, I don't know that we have bandwidth to do that. So anyway, throwing that out there. But I think the parity thing is really important, because when we see that there's a clear thing we can switch over and we're not going to leave users hanging, then that's great. But my pet peeve about this is the stupidest thing, but with the OpenStack client, when you do OpenStack help, It's like, 8 screens later, you get your prompt back, and it's like, I think they need to redesign that help command so that it, because unless you pipe it to grep or something, you're just out of luck,
It's also kind of sluggish because every time you run OpenStack client, it loads 40,000 Python libraries for everything that exists, which if you're scripting against it is not wonderful. I like the idea a lot of replacing the OpenStack volume CLI with some Cinder client based plugin. I mean, you have to solve the, how do you migrate from the current one to the other one, but it would help with a lot of things if we did that. I mean, I think
Ironic
that,
did.
yeah, I mean, it seems pretty clear that that would be the most productive way to go about this whole thing to me.
Initially, I had hoped that we could take a lot of the existing Cinder client code and adapt it so it could behave like an OSC plugin. But I was talking with a colleague on the Manila side who was basically implementing a lot of OpenStack Manila code for the first time. And unfortunately, it was essentially a rewrite. It's very difficult to basically borrow code.
I'm going to catch up on notes here, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, and then I can use these as, something to take back if and when conversation continues around this.
So I'm going to add this link. We've been carrying around a parity. I'm not sure how up to date that is, but there's a lot of stuff in there for feature gaps.
I mean, it's surely only gotten worse since we last assessed it, right? There's no way it got better, I would think.
I was trying to be optimistic, but now that you say it out loud, yeah, I think you're right. So it's probably a subset at this point.
Because filling in almost any of these gaps requires microversions to be working in OSC.
But yeah, I'll just throw this out for you, Jay. I'll let you finish that sentence though. This may be my fault for not paying attention enough. I'm really unclear with the relationship and the purposes for Shade, OpenStack SDK, OpenStack Client, and who's doing what and what the what their targets
So
are.
I kind of agree, and architecturally, to me, saying that everybody should install OpenStack SDK to run clients just seems like a weird design. Like, I mean, maybe there's reasons that it's shaped that way, but it seems very weird to say that if you want a client, you need to install the SDK for OpenStack. Maybe I'm using some terminology there or something, but it just strikes me as a strange thing.
Yeah, and then Jay, since you're involved in these discussions, the other thing is like a lot, like Shade at least. I'm not sure if that has evolved to something else, right? A lot of these tools are opinionated because they want it easy to work for people, and we can't really do that with because right, the people who are going to work with our stuff could be admins who are not going to do the typical, right? They want the full range of features, right? Whereas casual people who name their volumes, right, don't need access to everything. So that's been part of the problem too, is it hasn't always been clear whether it's sort of an opinionated thing or whether it's supposed to expose everything.
The Shade
So,
wiki says it's been superseded by OpenStack SDK.
okay. So then, yeah, so I don't know if the opinionated, I read that somewhere. I can't remember if it was SDK or Shade. But anyway, I mean, I guess part of the problem with the virtual PTG has been it hasn't been real easy to collaborate because the time zone splits, you know, been so big. But so I always don't like bringing up stuff where I don't know what's going on because it's probably my fault for not paying attention. But on the other hand, I just don't know what's going on.
That's okay. I don't know what's going on either. So I mean, I think you're bringing up a good point that Cinder Client is designed to be fully functional for administrators. And so maybe the answer is, well, you know, that's the user experience for an administrator is there are going to be things that they need to use Cinder Client for, and that the general user gets the advantage of just having, you know, the OSC interface. But, you know, so some of that is we need to understand from the OSC team, what is the goal? Is it to provide an easy interface or is it to provide a fully functional interface? Didn't we go through this with Cinder Client a long time ago with whether we show help for administrators and normal users differently? And that was a whole big brouhaha as to whether we did that or not. So it's not like that's a new discussion here.
Well, the goal for OpenStack Client has to be that it includes everything. That's the only goal that would make any sense for what it's supposed to do.
Okay. In which case it can't remain simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard problem, and it hasn't gotten simpler by the proliferation of projects that all have, you know, need command line access.
Um, okay. Does that
Yeah, I think that.
cover? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna. Another tangent is community goals. What's the? So I know we got Luigi's going, and we're in good shape with respect to that. But as far as I know, that's. Do you know what the status of this stuff is right now?
I do.
Like, was there a
And
meeting I was supposed to attend and missed? I guess is the other.
so let's see. Um, look at me being useful as a TC member. Um, give me a second to find. There we go. Okay. So the selected goal at the moment is to switch legacy Zool jobs to native.
We approve.
Yeah, because we're already there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was why that wasn't like on the top of my head, because I thought we'd already dealt with that. So we're good there. And then we are discussing, there's one other one that for some reason people are lazy and not voting on. So let me find, wow, I took a lot of notes yesterday. Let me find that. Here it is. The second one that we're approving right now is migrating to Focal for the Ubuntu Focal in the Victoria cycle for the check in the gate. Which, if people are interested, here's the link to that proposal.
Does that mean only focal, or what's the range?
Okay. All CI testing jobs for official OpenStack projects should run on Ubuntu Focal. So that to me says that we migrate everything from Bionic to Focal.
My initial reaction to that is that Focal runs Python 3.8, right? I guess I need to see what versions of Python we're trying to support.
Okay.
I think for this cycle, it's 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, possibly dropping 3.7 in the middle of the cycle.
Well, this has long been my concern, is like CentOS 8 runs 3.6. How's it ever going to get tested if you move everything to Focal? I would think we would want jobs that were still running on 3.6 for some of them.
Yeah.
Should definitely be 3.6. That's part of the published runtime, so I don't think everything would move.
What's the implication for, I mean, thinking really narrowly for Cinder, I guess in terms of work, what would the impact be?
I mean, it should be pretty minimal.
It would just be something, if it revealed some kind of weird flaw, we would fix it. But I'm just wary of these goals that sound like there's not much to do, and then.
Well, and this one is just, I mean, it sounds great. The goal is like migrate all the Bionic jobs to Focal. It's like, okay, but then how do you test the other versions of Python? That seems very related to this. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. And the other goal that I don't know if we're going to officially state, because it's kind of the Sean McGinnis goal of removing mock from everything, and he's just doing that. So
the external library.
Yeah, the mock third-party one, not the basically switching over
Yeah,
to use.
please don't remove it.
yeah, sorry, that
Please don't remove it yet. Yeah, it's broken. I
What,
just
Unitest
created.
mock?
Yep. So external library and Unitest mock both are broken, which Oslo test for the external library has a workaround in mock fixtures, but it doesn't work on Python 3. And I just created 30 seconds ago a bug for that. This is the bug.
I'd like to take a look.
Yeah. Because I was working on what Eric described earlier of setting auto spec on our methods. And yeah, I ended up finding a bug. So until that is resolved, we probably want to use the external one instead of the other one.
I think we're using both.
Though
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, probably we can do something intermediate, which is we remove it from everywhere like you want to do, and we only use it in one place where we replace the internal one with the external one until this bug is fixed, and then we just have to remove one line or a couple lines.
Yeah, makes sense.
So as far as we've started discussing the W goals as well, and the proposal was to pull from the Victoria ones that didn't make it, obviously. One of them in discussion is the OpenStack CLI, and like I said, that one's controversial, so not sure what will happen with that. I think one that is more likely to happen, and it may end up being a multi-cycle goal, but one that I think Cinder shouldn't have too much trouble getting to, is moving from root wrap to using PrivSep. We're already partially done with that, correct?
I think we've moved to a lot of places, so.
Right, and so what we were kind of proposing is for that one, initially if you can remove root wrap, that would be great, even if it's moving to using PrivSep with still calling external shell commands, and then.
So. Yeah, I mean, that can mean a few different things. Like if you pull up the goal that's proposed,
yeah,
it seems to be talking about using PrivSep properly, as in moving from shell commands to Python code where you can, as opposed to just using PrivSep to do what we were doing with root wrap.
Right. And so I think the goal needs to be rewritten depending on how we decide to implement the goal. So this was just in discussion that we would, have it initially be remove root wrap in the first cycle where it's a goal, and then in the second cycle complete it where things are rewritten to use PrivSep properly.
I think we already did the first one, didn't we?
And yeah, that's why I was like, well, this shouldn't be too hard for us, is I think we've done the first part already for the most part in Cinder.
I think there are still a few places we have root wrap use. It's still in our requirements, at least.
Yeah, so the first step would be to get to the point where it's not in our requirements anymore.
Okay, well, that doesn't sound too bad.
I'm very interested in the Procep stuff. The most recent work I did on it is actually currently blocked on needing some work done in Cinderlib, and I don't know. We haven't talked in a while about trying to get that done.
Okay, I'll get it done.
All right.
Today.
Okay. First, we can talk more about specs tomorrow. I did want to point out that link on line 409 before somebody hits the return up there. So there's some minor changes that aren't bugs and don't require specs that we're sort of working on. They're aimed at V1, which is like in 2 weeks. So anyway, in terms of like reviewing priorities, something to keep an eye on. There's also not quite technical debt. I guess there's some things that have been deprecated that we can like actually act on. So I have those in the Launchpad blueprints. I think the main one is the RBD keyring thing that's connected with OSSN 85. So we put a note. We'll do this. Oops. Keep trying to edit the Etherpad on somebody else's screen. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do is, in the 10 minutes before we start happy hour, do our retrospective for Ussuri to see what went well, what didn't, what we can do, how we can smooth things out, suggestions people have. So let me see if anybody. Okay, so we got one person filled out the survey. So apparently these surveys are not the way to go to get people to think about retrospective type stuff. Look at it.
Guess who's the one person?
Yeah, I guess I didn't fill it out myself, so I probably I should include myself in the list of people who didn't fill it out. Oh. So we can use this response to get things started. So what we're doing well is communicating, so that's good, and providing a world-class block storage product. So how can you not like that answer? What should we start doing? Get back to doing reviews more efficiently. Get more driver maintainers and operators involved. And improve OpenStack CLI parity with the Cinder client. Right, so we have talked about some of these things, okay. And then what should we stop doing? No response. So that's cool. All right. So actually, right, review efficiency is a concern because I know everybody wants to get their stuff merged as quickly as possible and move on to the next thing. And yeah, does anyone have suggestions for, I guess, getting back to doing reviews more efficiently implies that there was a better state than we're in now. So someone could elaborate on what can we, are there particular things we can do better that we are not? And maybe in particular me. I know I review a lot more slowly than Jay or Sean. So
well, I'm wondering, is the answer really to just up the throughput of reviews, or can we address this by just trying to be more predictable? Where if we try to set some targets every now and then and just say, we'll try to review this set of changes by milestone whatever, or the end of the month or something, maybe the actual throughput is not the big problem. It's maybe just more that people aren't sure how long stuff is going to be sitting around, and you show up every day and you see your patch still sitting there and you don't know why it's still sitting there.
Right.
We may be able to help with that without actually having to fix, just making everybody go faster.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, we do say somewhere in the documentation that we are aware of your patches, but I got to admit, it does help when people are in IRC and say, hey, can you take a look?
Yeah.
It's a terrible system, but it does work. So it's
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it's interrupt based, unfortunately.
One idea is on the requirements team, we've had people sign up for review days. So you just know that, okay, my day to review patches is Monday. So every Monday I'll make sure I set aside at least a little time to go through and look at patches. If we have that, then maybe people could see that list of who has the review day and know a specific person they could possibly ping. Just as a way too for us as core reviewers to know, oh, okay, it's Thursday, I better go do some reviews because this is my review day. Maybe that could help.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because, right, if that day has passed and your stuff hasn't been looked at, then you do know who to talk to.
Not like we can review all the patches on our review day, but at least if there's more of a conscious effort to set aside a specific time that we would do reviews, then maybe we could start getting things moving a little faster.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of informally do that, in the fact that, Wednesdays when we have the Cinder meeting, there's usually something that comes up in there that makes me think, oh, I need to go look at this. I'm sick of dealing with other work on Monday and Tuesday, so it's like, all right, I make some time every Wednesday to go look at things. If that were formally something that I was assigned to do, then, it would maybe make a better practice for me to know that, okay, Wednesdays I go look at reviews and do what I can there. So I don't mind that idea.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I should. I've noticed there've been some reviews where I've left a request to revise something, and then 6 weeks later I come across this review and I'm looking at it and think this looks kind of familiar, and then I realize they'd addressed the comment right after I made it, and I just didn't notice. So I guess just letting people know it's okay to bug me if I've asked for a, revision and you did it. Okay. So I guess the predictability sounds good. Yeah, we can think about how we want to okay. Any other observations or I guess everyone's ready.
Give out virtual beer prizes for reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the you have as much virtual beer as you want. It's unending supply.
Right.
All right.
I don't know. Red Hat's pretty deeply invested here. They should, have a monthly "we'll ship beer to your house" if you're the top reviewer or something.
Wow. I think Sean would spend the entire cycle drunk.
Works for me.
All right.
I don't know how good
okay.
the reviews would end up being, though.
+2. Okay.
Okay.
Send me my beer.
All right. So it looks like I'm trying to. Yes. I'm in the wrong place. Okay.
Hey, I know if you can hear me.
You're very quiet.
What about now? Oh,
That's
something's
better.
wrong here.
Better.
Okay,
A lot of
Okay.
yeah.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I complete the wrong survive.
Oh.
So I don't know how many. But yeah, I know. I want to thank you, Brian. You're doing a great job. And
Oh.
yes.
You didn't read out what the PTL needs to do better part.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I didn't. Thanks, Sophia. I'm always happy to hear compliments. So, and I think everybody's, as far as I can tell, right, all the core reviewers are actively reviewing stuff. So thank you, and please keep that going. We have a good core of people who are contributing stuff, like Sophia, Luigi, and then we have driver maintainers who are pretty active. In particular, I can see Lucio and Fernando there, both active reviewing other people's stuff during the last cycle. And also some other drivers. Just I only see 6 faces. And so that's why I'm thinking those people. So thanks for everybody who has been doing reviews. I did notice that some of the people who typically work on vendor drivers were branching out into reviewing other stuff, and that just helps the project a lot. So I appreciate that. Try to come up with some kind of way to make reviewing more predictable. And then, so that sounds good. All right, I guess it's happy hour. So what I'd like to do is move to MeetPad. And then we can try to take our team photo in there before people have too many virtual beers. So I'm going to stop the recording here. I'll keep the Etherpad open in case anybody joins us late. They know where to look for us. And I guess I should put like in big letters or something where we are. Okay. All right. So I'll see you in like a minute in MeetPad, and then we'll conclude our discussions of Cinder tomorrow. So thanks for attending today.
The